Buenos dias, good morning. I am Stephanie Ricca, Editor-in-Chief of Hotel News Now, and I am here this morning with Sebastien Bazin.
It's me.
CEO of AccorHotels. Bonjour, Sebastien.
Bonjour, tu vas bien?
Ça va bien et tout. And that concludes the French portion of our interview. Thank you for joining us.
Abel, ça va? Ouais, très bien.
So we just have a short time this morning, so I'm going to jump right in.
You're the boss for the next 30 minutes. You're the boss, or 45 minutes.
Oh, nice to know.
Then
All
I'll
right.
take back my seat.
So the last 2 years have been a whirlwind for Accor.
Yeah.
When we look when we look at what you've done, we've seen new strategies for the ownership and the management side of the business. We've seen you acquire all or shares of several companies and brands, notably in the lifestyle, home sharing, upscale and luxury spaces. I could go on and on. FRHI, Mama Shelter, 25 Hours Hotels. We could stay here for an hour and list those companies.
Because there's many things you still don't know, though.
See, so we'll have plenty of time. And on top,
all of a sudden, you're gonna pay attention now.
On top of the acquisitions, we've seen you launch a new brand about a year ago, Joe & Joe, a hybrid hotel hostel brand. So needless to say, there's been a lot going on for you and at Accor. If you could boil those 2 years, the past 2 years, down into one or two words, how would you describe it?
Easy. And I'll go back 40,000 feet altitude on telling you why we've been doing all this. Simple phrase, I believe in today's world, either you changed or you will be changed. So either you act, and then you make some hard decision, and you take some risk, and stand still is not an option. So if you don't act, somebody is going to be acting for you. That somebody is called Booking, Expedia, Airbnb, Google, Amazon, Facebook. I mean, again, the world has changed so much, you'd better change. So Accor, I'm not doing it because I love doing it. I'm doing it because I want Accor to be ahead of the game. I want Accor to be different. I want Accor to listen to the outside environment. And I want Accor to be a first mover in many directions. And it's going to pay off in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Does not matter. At least we dared doing something. So again, stand still is not an option.
Mm-hmm. And change requires fast pace.
Well, it's a difficult combination because I've been a fast actor for 25 years. And I love anything which is when you have speed, scale, brain, and a lot of actually humanity. My speed is probably too fast if you ask the majority of Accor employees. Do I believe I'm going fast enough? No. So I have to adapt my pace with the capacity to execute all those initiatives. And that's difficult because you're dealing with big companies, which means inertia, size, and a lot of people don't understand what is it we're doing. So, which is why I came here to see you. Probably half of my job now is pedagogy. Explain to people why 25 hours, why Joe & Joe, why private rental, why John Paul. Because nothing comes by accident, nothing.
And when people ask you that question, why, is your response, tell us what your response is, what you just mentioned?
Well, there's a response. Usually you get part of your answers by looking in the mirror. What is it that we have missed the last 15 years? And I think it is absolutely evident for me. I hope it is evident for others. Stephanie, let's go back 40,000 feet altitude and think, all of us, we have a small room, so we can do it together, and I hope we're going to have time for Q&A. If you look 40,000 feet, macro economy, why are we all still here at SAIC? Why does this conference exist? Because we're all acting in a blessed industry. There's probably no better industry in the world, which is today the tourism and travel industry. Why? Because that industry has been growing at 4 or 5% per annum the last 20 years. That industry will continue to grow 4 or 5% per annum in the next 20 years. That industry represents, in the world, 1 out of 10 jobs. Mm-hmm. So that industry is growing, has scale, size, and grows in each continent. So that's the good news. No one of us probably going to die soon, because we have a good tailwind. The problem is because that industry has growth capacity, size, scale, and opportunities. It means this is one of the first industry where you've been facing so much mutation over the last 15 years because people have seen what I'm seeing. And that's called the online travel agencies, and it's called Airbnb, and it's called Google Home, and it's going to be called artificial intelligence, and it will be mobile payment. All of a sudden, people are not attacking Marriott, Hilton, and Accor. They're just invading a growing industry in which they feel comfortable. And it's a very easy industry to read, because everybody understands hospitality. Go into the oil and gas industry, pharmaceutical industry. It's a much more opaque industry. If you're an amateur, you may die. This industry is fairly easy to grasp. So that is the first item. Second item, that industry is growing, but is also changing on the consumer side. The behavior of our client today is vastly different from the behavior of the same client 20 years ago. So not only you have to listen to who are the new actors, but who are you serving? Accor, we're serving two clients. My owner owns the real estate, and we still have a lot of real estate, but he wants somebody to pay for his risk because he's taking a risk, he's investing a lot of millions, and he wants to have a return. And I have another client which wants something very different, which is people staying in my hotel. And they also want something very different. They want to be surprised, they want emotion, they want to be a person and not a number. You know, I'm traveling 250 days a year. And I've been traveling for the last 10 days in different hotels. Some of being Accor, some being non-Accor. I can tell you for the last 10 days, I am still absolutely stunned 3 or 4 times when I check at the counter, the people in front of me at the reception don't even ask me, how are you, sir? They're going by the norm. What's your credit card? Have you pre-reserved? It's kind of it's hello, anybody home? Can you please ask me who I am? So that industry may be dying because we only look at ourselves. We forget looking at the guy across the counter. Mm-hmm. So adapt to your environment, adapt to your clients. They have a lot of information they didn't have before. Do they still like branded product? It's a big question. We may have different answers in this room. I think brands are immensely important. As long as within a brand you can still be trendy, funky, different. I am against all the norms, all the standards, all these standard rooms. People are just sick of it. If you happen to be in Buenos Aires, you want to have some local flavor. So it's a big mutation, and our industry better wake up. Some of us are still sleeping, and I don't want Accor to be in the sleeping category.
And I imagine one of the biggest challenges of that is trying to be nimble and flexible to adapt to a changing customer base while dealing with a huge customer base, a lot of real estate, big hotels, people behind the scenes, employees working. You need to be able to move a lot of parts in order to affect change.
Yeah, but that's good news because people of our size, we have 250 million clients every year and almost like 800,000 sleeping every night in an Accor hotel room. So if you can record the data of your client, store it someplace. Make sure it's being shared and used because recording your data is actually good. If you don't share it, if you happen to be in Buenos Aires, tomorrow you're going to be in New York or you're going to be in Bangkok, I'd better know that I guess you want green tea and you want to be on the upper floor. But if you really understand how to use the data, I will know you better. And what I know about you, the world of tomorrow, price is an element less than before. What people want when they travel today, they want to be, and it's difficult definition, they want to be transformed, i.e., they want to remember of something happening to them when they've been getting into a new culture, new country, new geography. They want to remember something. Either they remember a person, a smile, or they remember a sight, or they remember that they've learned something, because that souvenir will be shared on the social network. Half of Facebook content is travel tourism related. Half of it. And how much of that half is price? Less than 5%. What they want to share with people is the fact that they coming back being different from when they left because they've learned something.
So you mentioned that you've been on the road for a while since coming here to Buenos Aires. what were some memorable moments from hotels that you've stayed at over the last 10 nights? Do you remember any, and did you share them to social networks?
Wow. I was in New York, I was in Boston, I was in Lima. I'm here.
Do you know what day it is?
Do I remember where I wake up? No. In many times when I'm in the bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, I have no idea where I am. My biggest thing, I spend so much time in hotels, so much time in different conferences, meeting owners and investment bankers and lawyers. My life is fairly boring. I don't have time really to go and visit the sites. Yesterday, we took some time in Lima, visiting some great architectural, some great kind of actually former pyramids and over Ink. I mean, it was extraordinary, but what I remember the most is one girl at the Swiss hotel who was actually looking after me, and actually, she knew who I was. She'd been serving me some great red wine. And when I left last night, I kissed her. And I didn't know whether I should be able, as a chairman and CEO, can I kiss somebody with... And I wanted to kiss her because this was my way of just saying thank you to me. She was warm. She was emotional. She was kind. Mm-hmm. So for me, yeah, probably 2/3 of what I do is, which the thing with Accor is probably very good, is that moment of truth in between two persons. If you make it work, you will always remember it. So for me, I go back to hotels for the person I've met before. I don't come back for the room.
And that's authentic hospitality.
So
Sebastien, you've been in your current role at Accor for 4 years now.
Yep.
Can you share some of maybe 3 personal and professional highlights over those 4 years, when so much has happened, that really stand out to you?
The first is financially size, pipeline, brands. We have made enormous progress. I think Accor has never been stronger than today, never ever for the last 50 years. We have great people, great balance sheet, great brands, and great market share. So that was kind of the easy part, because that's quantitative. What is the biggest stumbling block, and probably still a weakness of Accor, is culture. And I'm not talking culture of interfacing with the client. I think we're very good at this. Culture meaning I have 260,000 employees. We hire every year another 80,000 people. We lose 50,000 people. Most of them is people we have trained in Asia Pacific, in Middle East, in Africa. After 3 or 4 years, they gain whatever they want from Accor, and then they go for somebody locally, or they go for another industry. I talk about culture for one reason. I spend a lot of time trying to compare Accor to TripAdvisor, to Trivago, to Booking, to Facebook, and I've been saying it a lot in Europe and in Asia, but I haven't said it here in your continent. I'm going to try to be very simple here. If you compare an old industry like ours, Accor, and it's true for IBM or GE or any General Motors of the world, and if you compare this old industry to the new economy, what is absolutely evident is they have 4 things that we don't have. The first thing is, which is a fact, and don't be scared about it, 90% or 80% of all those new companies existing today for the last 15 years or 20 years have been invented by a founder which was at the time below 35 years old. Second category, 90% of all those new economy started on a blank sheet of paper. New project, new team, no inertia, no legacy, no habits, no norms, no standards. 90% of those companies have been based on a new, more efficient, leaner, faster technology. It's extremely technology-based. Fourth, which is the only thing we have in common, is that each of them said from the very first days, their audience is the world, not the city or the country in which they're based. When you look at those 4 things, 90% of companies like mine are today in the hands of people over 50 years old. 90% of us We have 40, 50, 100 years of legacy. 90% of us, we forgot to invest in technology. The only thing we have in common is skill. And when you look at those four things, one of the consequences of being different is culture and organization. 90% of the old economy has a vertical, pyramidal organization, hierarchy. I decide, and you have to be in my company for at least 25 years to be able to speak up, because it takes time to go up the ladder. And if you're very good, you're going to have a corner office with 2 or 3 windows.
And it can't be smaller than the corner office of
That's right. And 90% of all the new economy have a horizontal organization, not vertical. I.e., people at 25 years old, 31, has an equivalent say that somebody who may have 25 years of experience, because they listen to each other. So if I want Accor to be able to move and act, I need to shift the entire vertical organization to horizontal organization, which means I'm killing privileges. And people hate when you tell them, what you've been having, I'm going to be taking away from you, because if I don't, we're going to die.
So give us some more specific examples of how you do that and how that may inspire other similar companies to figure out how to tear down some of those
Stephanie,
old ways.
Let's not kid ourselves. Buying another operator, launching a Joe and Joe, it's an easy task because it takes money and guts and a little brain. Changing a culture is going to take 5 to 7 years at a minimum. And it's because you're dealing with 3 different buckets. Probably a third of my today workforce, and it's probably, let's be careful here, Accor has 5,500 people in different headquarters out of the 260,000 base. So what I'm talking about is much more outside of the hotels. In the hotels, it still exists, but I guess it has to be kept a bit vertical, because you need somebody in charge, because you have some unforeseen event every day in a hotel, so you'd better be able to respond to it. But outside of the hotel, in my headquarters, you have a third of my people, they understand the new economy, they want to embrace it, they're very good at it, and they're going to be locomotive. So those guys are in front in the war with me. You have a second category, which is people understand the need to change. They want to change, but they don't know how to act. So they want to be trained, and I'm very happy to train them, for them to basically listen and understand the world we live in. But I have a third bucket, which is people where they don't really see the need for change. They don't understand the environment within. They're very pleased to act and keep the privileges they had, and clearly they don't want to be trained. And I don't want to leave those people aside, which is why it takes 5 to 7 years, because I need to go back to them and say, guys, I know you don't want to change. It's not me forcing on you. It's just my clients want something different, and we have to adapt. So that is probably the biggest job for me, is to keep the workforce and having to understand that somebody who's been in yield management probably should not be spending some time with yield management, should probably go into the database loyalty system, because it's probably more key for me. I mean, there's probably a third of what we do today which would be better off in the hands of a partner who has a better technology, because we have 1,000 engineers. C-Trip in China have 7,000 engineers. So can I keep up with technology when somebody booking is spending $4 billion a year in buying keywords, technology, and marketing? I'm spending $400 million a year. It's a 1 to 10 ratio. That game is too late. So there's a lot of decisions I have to make on stop doing things, doing other things, and try to embrace what somebody else is doing in some fashion. Because don't compete with somebody better than you. And again, we talk about booking. I like booking. I like Expedia. I've never been, even Airbnb, I've never been against Airbnb. Because Airbnb exists because your children, your grandfather, my children, you go to Airbnb because it is a third cheaper, because it's 50% more spacious, and because it's believed to be more fun. Can I cut my pricing by a third? No. Can I enlarge my room by 50%? No. Can I make my hotels more fun? Yes. So, and booking, it costs me more than a travel agency, but booking has access to millions of clients, much more traffic, that I had with my local travel agency. So it cost me more, but they give me more. The one thing I don't want is I don't want to be depending on someone.
So let's go back to, you mentioned Airbnb, and one way I think Accor has been very daring over the past few years is instead of shunning some of those platforms, you've embraced them. One Fine Stay, opening your booking platform to selected independent hotels. How have you made that mindset change that these alternative accommodations providers are not an enemy, but rather something to better understand and perhaps embrace?
Well, they're not an enemy because you have to understand why they exist. They're being smart to create something we should have thought of before, which is why I'm telling you, we've missed the OTA, we've missed the sharing economy, I'm not going to be missing the next wave. So on the sharing economy, we have missed the commodity product, which is this pretty affordable housing in which you pay less, but you don't have any attached service. And the one weakness of Airbnb, it's not a weakness, it's something they decided not to do for a lot of good, legitimate reasons, which is they don't want to have local force, local payroll. I have so many people on the ground. I think the big companies like ours, it's being more and more costly, tougher on the acquisition of a new client, because Booking and Expedia have a better reach to new clients. You accept to pay more because they give you a client you could not have otherwise. However, the one game we cannot afford to lose is retaining a client. So you may be paying once for booking, which is okay, but whenever you see that client with you, keep him. Give him a loyalty card, but that's not good enough. The one thing we have that Booking or Airbnb don't have is I see the client. Those guys will never see their clients. They interface through a machine. For me, I have 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours with someone. So I can embrace that relationship, and maybe that guy will remember who I am. But if you want to be in the retention game, my belief, and I may be right, I may be wrong, is many of you will continue, 90% of you in the next 10 years, probably less than 2 nights on the business trips, you will still go to a hotel room. Because you won't go to sharing economy because you're going to be staying less than 2 nights. You're on business, and you want to make sure everything functions, and you don't want to spend the time on not finding the keys, not knowing where you are. But many of you, a third of you, half of you, you go to Paris, you go to Bangkok, you go to New York with me or Hilton or Marriott for 2 nights. The same person, if you were to come back to Boston, to New York, to Bangkok, with your grandchildren, with the friends, where you stay over 3 nights, over 3 people, a third of you, you're not going to be staying with me. You're going to go to sharing economy. Why? Because it's going to be cheaper, more spacey, and maybe more fun. So why can't I offer to you what you want? Which is, when you come back to Paris, and you come back to New York, and you come back to London, we now have Accor 10,000 apartments, houses, townhouses, which is not mine. But I am the interface with you, who's being with me in my hotels. You're very happy that I guess Accor will provide you that service because you may want something extra when you're in Paris or Bangkok. You want to have access to a spa, you want to have the linens, you want to have amenities, you want to have a concierge, you want to have a car. I can provide that for you, Airbnb cannot, because they're then depending on outside, basically, sub-suppliers. So all the reassurance, all the interface, you're still my client, you happen to be in a non-hotel room, I don't care. Because at least I retain that relationship with you, and then I know you better, and then I can serve you better.
And that's building a brand.
And it's building a brand, so keep it as retention.
So you mentioned just a moment ago, as an industry, we've missed the boat on OTAs.
Yeah.
Missed the boat on shared accommodations.
On sharing economy with no service attached.
With no service attached.
We clearly are today leader when it comes to that service. In sharing economy.
Sure.
Which is more upper mid-scale.
And you said you don't want Accor to miss the boat on what's next. You're talking about customer retention. Is that what's next? What's the next wave of, I hate to use the overused word of disruptor?
It's coming. It's there already. There's 2.
That you're dealing with.
Well, I thought we were going from first wave, second wave, third, fourth. The third and the fourth are coming today in parallel. Greater force, as disruptive as the first 2, different nature. One, indeed, is artificial intelligence. All those devices you will have at your home called Google Home and Amazon and Microsoft and others will do it. It exists. You have it at home. He will be basically recording absolutely everything about you and your family. He's going to be understanding in which mood you are. He will have listen to you when you're negotiating with your bankers because you can't afford your interest payment. And that little device, because it's going to get to know you better, will tell you, and you're going to be taken by surprise, or you, Stephanie, you're probably stressed, you're tired, I have a great hotels at a 40% less cost. You should be going for the weekend. I've organized a travel. Why don't you take it up? That machine will have selected for you what you probably need the most is that rest at something you can afford. I'd better be close to that machine. That machine may disrupt Booking and Expedia vastly. So that's an artificial intelligence. We only seen the beginning of it because that's going to be extremely linked to Internet of Things, connected objects, which may change everything in a hotel room in terms of physical aspect. The second thing which is coming as violently as the first is payment online. My belief, in 5 years, probably 90% of cash credit card would have disappeared in the hotel industry.
Which is already happening.
You have the Alipay, you have the Stripe, you have the WeChat. It's coming. And we also better react to it. It has a lot of impact on treasury, the way you manage cash and balance sheet, but it's going to be reinforcing your relationship with your client. But you have to be part of it.
So you've mentioned in the past, and I feel like it's always sort of been a footnote or a bottom line in stories that we've heard from Accor about some new projects that you're working on in hotels to expand the hotel footprint, where you've said, we have these boxes, we have these pieces of real estate, people will come and stay and eat and sleep. What else can they do in those hotels where you can offer them that element of hospitality service? So talk a little bit about your thinking on this next wave of what I think is customer retention.
Okay, I'll respond to you, but I'll go one step behind. I told you the things we have in common, the things we don't have in common between new economy, old economy. What's striking is there's two things we have, and they really do not want to have. One is capital intensity. Accor manages 4,300 hotels on the planet. Behind those 4,000 hotels, 300, there is $120 billion US of money being spent. And we open 2 new hotels every 3 days. That means every 3 days, somebody is giving Accor another $500 million of spent. The second thing we have that they don't have is we have labor. So we have 260,000 people. So we have over $100 billion US spent and a lot of people. For them, they want to be capital light and labor light. And if you look at it in a very simple terms, I mean, the math may be a bit incorrect. I think all the big hotel companies in the world, we have the same market cap as Booking and Expedia together, like $130 billion. They probably have together 80, 90,000 employees. Altogether, we have over 3 million employees.
It's a lot of people and a lot of cash.
So it is a weakness. What it appears to be a weakness, and which is why they have so much value in the stock market, because they have better agility, less volatility, and better free cash flow. But since I have it, and there's nothing much I can do about it, it's my legacy, and this is one of the stumbling block of Accor. Why don't I think about it differently, and how could I transform a weakness into a force? So then you say to yourself, well, I have the 4,000 hotels. I have so many people on the ground. I have one thing that I've never really been using properly is it happens to be that my assets are open 24 hours, 7 days a week, which is the only industry where we never close. Never, ever. And it happens that I guess many of my hotels are in the heart of mini cities. AAA located. Probably 2/3 or 3/4 of Accor network is in the primary cities. Then you go one step forward. You say, it's funny, I am in a blessed industry, which is the way we started. You have 1.3 billion people traveling today. And remember, because I was not born in 1950, but in 1950s there was only 25 million. In 1980s there was only 200 million. And 1980 is not a long time ago. And now it's 1.3 billion, and you will go to 2 billion for sure. But we have 7.5 billion people living on the planet, which means good news, 1.3 billion travel. Bad news, 6 billion do not travel. Good news, at least 1 billion in the 6 billion non-traveling, they live in big mega capital cities, approximately a couple hundred cities in the world. Good news, that 1 billion will become 2 billion for sure in the next 25 years. Good news, many of those people have smartphones, and they are technology geared, and they are using the Amazon, the Facebook, the eBay of the world because it enhances their quality of life, and they like it. And they were going to be using Google Home and other devices. So why can't we, as the hospitality sector, offer to the non-travelers, local inhabitants, local merchants, the way for them to access my asset open 24 hours, 7 days a week? Because they actually need it. It's called Accor Local, so we're launching a big test. It's been launched for the last 4 months in 90 hotels today in France, on making basically opening the gates. And I know that guy will never use the room because he lives next door. He does not need the room. And when we launched it, Stephanie, is I sat down with we first launched it in Paris, so we had like 10 general managers, Ibis, Novotel, Mercure, Sofitel, many different brands. And the 10 GMs in front of me, male and female, they were very excited about basically these initiatives. So I was there and I said, how well do you know your neighborhood? Oh, Monsieur Bazin, and how long have you been in your current position? On average, was 3 years. And each of them told me, no, we know very well the neighborhood in which the hotel is located. I said, well, that's good. So let me test you. Give me, please, first name, last name of the pharmacist, the florist, the pricing, those local merchants next to you. Only one of the 10 knew the name of the florist or the butcher or the pharmacist. I bet you, if you ask the local merchant, if he knows the name of the local, he will know their name inside out. I said, guys, you don't know your neighborhood. And I don't blame you. You don't know it because you've been serving outsiders, people coming from a different town, different city, different country. So if you want Accor Local to work, the first thing you have to do, would you please be humble, introduce yourself to those local guys because they're actually going to need you. And you know what the test shows us, which is normal common sense. When you go to your laundry and pressing shop next door, this is probably where you have the best loyalty between a customer and a service provider. Because you want to do it 50 meters, 100 meters away from your home, because you're not going to be going in a taxi or in a train with all your laundry to be done. And many times, you would have told that person that you need your dress on Thursday because you have a big dinner Thursday night. Can she please make it? And you only give her that dress on Tuesday. And she remembers that, I guess, Thursday night, she needs a dress to be made for you. But she closes at 6:30. And you're not there at 6:30. So what does she do? She probably has to stay open, but she really don't know whether you've been forgetting that your dress is there and how long she has to stay open. But she doesn't want you to miss your dinner. So now, that service provider is sending an SMS to her client and saying, please don't leave your office, no stress. Your dress is at the Novotel reception 50 meters from here. Pick it up, they're waiting for you. You're happy, he's happy, I'm happy, because all of a sudden you're going to be entering my Novotel, which you've never done before. And maybe you're going to say, wow, it's nicer than I expected, there's a bar here, maybe I can have a coffee. Then I may have you as a customer of some sort. And you demultiply that by a number of different services rendering. It's just that little Accor Local, because it is concierge, because it is loyalty-driven, because it could be a fee-driven, could be probably a third, 50% of Accor business 10 years from today.
So you're not suggesting that the dry cleaner locates in the Novotel lobby.
Of course not.
But that she uses the Novotel's facilities and people in a service partnership.
You basically give her the ability to expand her opening hours and to enrich her basically interaction with their guests at no expense.
So tell us how this pilot program is working.
I'll tell you when I'll be ready.
Who thinks this sounds like it would be a good idea? So maybe AccorHotels will change its name from hotels?
I'm just saying the one thing we also have different from others, and again, I'm not critiquing anyone because for a lot of good reasons, some models are better than other models depending where you are. Accor has one thing which is particular, is 75% of Accor's network is managed, operated by Accor. Only 25% is franchise. You take all the big US corporation, it's exactly the reverse. Mm-hmm. It's mostly franchise and less operated. So the Accor local initiatives, it's far easier for me to develop all over the world because it is basically me deciding, embracing my employees, and we deliver. I don't have to sit with different franchisees and asking them what to think of it, because that's going to take 10 years.
So that structure of Accor has changed over the past few years in different iterations as you put owned assets in certain spaces, managed in others, and now you're at a new platform for Hotel Invest, Accor Invest, correct?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, where it stands right now, and how you reached that decision.
You know, it's a harsh decision. My family has been in real estate for 3 generations, so I'm real estate passionate. I understand the risk, I understand the return, and it's one of those classes of asset in which people still going to be putting more and more money because it's inflation proof. There's a lot of good reason to hold real estate, lots still, and will be for the next decades in Argentina as well. However, I'm a listed company, so I'm here responding to my owners, my clients, and my investors. And every year passing, each of the hotel companies have been divesting of the real estate because the real estate is capital intensive, because it increases volatility, because you have to maintain it, and because investors believe it should be done by somebody being a real estate expert, not a hotel expert. And it's truly, granted, it's a different business. It is a lot of complementarities. It could be done under the same brand as we do, but it's different teams because different expertise. One is a balance sheet business, real estate. One is a P&L business, loyalty, tech-driven, which is a hotel operator. And I've been doing this for the last 3 years, separating all the expertise, and it works very nicely. And on the real estate, we went from 3.5 billion to 7.5 billion of value, euros. So it's a lot of money. But my stock price does not compare well to Hilton, to Marriott, to Intercom. And it upsets me. Because if I don't do it, somebody's going to be buying Accor and sell the real estate at my expense. So we decided to really separate the two companies one step further, which is to invite investors to buy some of the real estate in Accor in one single company called Accor Invest, based in Luxembourg, which has 1,000 hotels in 27 countries, which is the largest portfolio in Europe by far. That's 6.5 billion. So we're going that direction. I'm not giving the real estate to my shareholders. I am inviting long-term insurance government funds to invest in that company, and Accor will use the proceeds to do some other things.
So now that you have this platform in its new form, talk a little bit about your projections for growth for the company in the next few years. Accor is everywhere, here in South America in particular. Tell us a little bit about regions, markets that you'd like to see properties in, or that you think represent some untapped growth for Accor and its many brands.
I'll tell you. Accor is, if you want to simplify things, Accor is by far the largest hotel company in the world, if you exclude 2 countries. Which, by the way, it's bad because those happen to be the 2 largest countries, which is United States of America and China. But if you exclude US and China, Accor is the biggest in Europe, the biggest in South America, the biggest in the Middle East, the biggest in Asia Pacific, and will remain the biggest because we have the biggest pipeline. So 99% of Accor pipeline, so we have 900 hotels to be open, signed. 99% of those 900 hotels are in non-US. My competitors, 75% of that pipeline is still US domestic. So every year passing, Accor is increasing further our dominance in many markets, and I want it that way. And I'm going to be accelerating that pace. What's interesting is 85% of the development of Accor is outside of Europe. Not because I don't like Europe, but because we're so large in Europe that the emerging countries, developing countries, has better growth capacity and better pace. So the three regions in which Accor is going fast, Asia Pacific, including China, which is half of Accor network, is going very fast in Asia Pacific. 2 is India/Sub-Saharan Africa, because there is enormous capacity and lack of infrastructure. And 3 is Latin America. And within Latin America, we have 320 hotels today already, and we signed another 170, thanks to all those people here in front of me. And they want to go faster. So we'll have 500 hotels by 2020, and that's not good enough for me. But Stephanie, let's be very careful. Anybody who is driven by size makes a mistake, because that means you're driven by your ego, and that makes no sense. I am driven by local market share. So being the first, second leader in the world doesn't mean much if you happen to be in only 20 countries. What means the most is, do you have market leadership in Brazil? Do you have it in Paris? Do you have it in Bangkok? Because if you do, then you change the relationship with the online travel agency, because they need you to access Bangkok and Paris. Because I control the supply and inventory, so you can fix your terms. If you go too broadly, too thinly in too many countries, then you depend on them because you don't control your market share. So yes, size matters, but it matters locally, not globally.
So we just have a few minutes left, and I know you mentioned you wouldn't mind taking a question or two from the audience.
Sure.
So if anybody has a question for Sebastien, please raise a hand, and somebody will bring you a microphone. She's coming right up. You're in the front row, so
she's behind you.
First, a comment, Sebastien, about the share economy. Maybe this Accor Local program could be the perfect complementarity with the Airbnb guest, because they will be needed breakfast, spa service, restaurants, so that could be a good opportunity. But the question is, we are in South America, we are in Argentina, and I would like to get your view of Argentina growth opportunities for Accor business.
On Accor Local Airbnb, we could do wonders in between Accor and Airbnb and help them grow. Do I really want Airbnb to grow faster and bigger? No. So I like them, but I like them at the size they have. So
do you want to be serving them breakfast while they spend the night in someone else's house?
That I don't see coming shortly. So Argentina it's an enormous paradox, and it is heartbreaking, and I'm going to be very cautious here. Argentina and South America is one of those destinations which is virtually unknown, extraordinary in terms of size, culture, architecture. You have everything here, absolutely everything to make the destination so powerful. The one thing which makes it very difficult for us is anything has to do with the macroeconomy, geopolitical risk. You have some great couple years, 3 years in Argentina, and you have 7 bad years who kills the 3 good years. So it depends when you enter the cycle. You have a government today, and I've never met Monsieur Macri. Clearly, he's making some harsh decisions, and I wish, and probably everybody in this room should wish it's going to work, because the only thing you want is that doesn't matter who is your president, make sure it works for your economy. And there's a good smell. The problem with us is, and it's true for many countries in the world, by the way, certainly in Argentina, but it's true in Peru, and it's true the cost of land is still expensive. The cost of construction is the same cost as any place else in the world, and maybe a bit bigger. The employee cost is more than someplace else in the world. And the price point for me in selling a room is lower than someplace else in the world. So economically, I cannot get the price I need for me to take the risk on enhancing my market share here. It's an impossible economic equilibrium. Even though I feel there is growth opportunity, should be tourism coming in, which also relies to you need an open sky. You need more flights coming into Argentina, coming to Mendoza. Today it's too controlled. And my business depends on basically anything has to do with, you need low-cost airliners. Why is India going so fast? It's because they have Indigo Airline, who did not exist 20 years ago, and now has 300 aircraft. And they've opened 70 cities. So in a 20, 30-year bet, of course you need to be in Argentina and you need to be bigger. But everything we do here, frankly, we don't make any money. My owners don't make any money either.
But don't you think that the moment is now to get into Argentina?
Yeah, the moment is now. We have 12 hotels in Argentina. We probably should have 100 hotels here, except they don't have that many cities in which people want to go to. But again, the owners don't want to take that risk because that risk today is not met with the price of operating. I'm trying to find the best economical equilibrium. I think it works for IBs, it works for the low economic kind of segment. Anything which is mid-scale, upscale does not work so far. You can talk to Four Seasons, talk to Park Hyatt, talk to Sofitel. We're suffering. We're suffering in one of the best ever city in the world, which happens to be Buenos Aires. So yes, it should be functioning. We just need the right model. Abel, you have to work kind of actually a bit more.
I think we probably have time for one more question.
Yes.
If we have...
My question is, how do you handle the training of the staff? You say that you grow and grow and there will be so many travelers and everywhere. And how do you train the staff to take care of those people?
We train 100,000 people a year.
But where and how?
We have training...
They come to Sebastian's house and you
they come to my house. We have a lot of actually training academy in Asia Pacific, in Europe. We do a lot of it today through the web, which is obviously faster and better. The problem has nothing to do with the training capacity. We train and we train well. But because we train well and they get a lot of expertise within 2 years, 3 years, which is why we lose 50,000 people a year, because they are being trained by Accor and then they go to a local operator or they go to different industries. So training is not really a difficulty because we've been doing it for the last 50 years and because I have so many people on the ground. And half the training is done by the GM or the head. We change human resources to talent and culture, which is a new name for human resources. So I think we're very good at it. My big wish is not training better, is keeping those I've trained longer, because there's an enormous cost of losing 50,000 people a year. But it's probably the price to pay when you happen to be good at what you're doing. So, but it's a good point because it's one of the other things I guess I'm going to leave you as a conclusion, because the one thing the industry has not done well, and goes back to your question, sir, and it's probably, I wish it could be my legacy in 3 or 4 years from today. Each of us, and by the way, owners of you in the room, we have been too focused over the last 20 years on increasing lobby size, bars, restaurants, rooms at the expense of the back of the house. When you see today the space allocated to lockers room, to where people have to eat, all those employees you have, we've been totally misleading them as an individual. They work hard, it's painful, and they have no place to hide, no place to rest. I need to probably double the space to those people, because the happier they are at work, the better they will be interacting with clients. And that's something we have missed probably the last 10 years.
So I want to ask you one thing to close out on before we've gone over our time, but one last quick comment. I know we have some hospitality students from around the world here at this conference. What is one quick piece of advice that you would give them as they look to starting their career in hospitality?
Well, I'll tell you something, and it's not going to serve me well. The piece of advice: don't stay 20 years in the same group. in the same brand. And I really mean it. Anybody who is between 20 years old and 40 years old, and I say that to my kids, please change job, change company, change geography at least 3 or 4 times. Because every time you change someplace else means you're coming into the unknown, means you're taking a risk, and if you can adapt to the unknown better and number of occasions, you're going to be stronger. Anybody who wants to stay in a company for the next 20 years, that was true in 1980, it cannot be true today. So that's my advice.
That's a great note to end on. Please join me in thanking Sebastien.
Thank you so very much.